Welcome back, troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. The teasing is over. Here we go. We are going to unbox this beautiful guitar that you probably already saw in the title of this video, the Brian Ray Signature SG. Now, this is not actually the first guitar that Mr. Ray has had with Gibson. He had kind of like a SG standard type guitar that kind of had like a really cool TV finish to it. I think they officially called it Silver Fox, but it really didn't look the same as like the old Epiphone Silver Foxes in my opinion. But this was announced at Summer NAMM of 2019, and here we are. It should be Summer NAMM 2020, but unfortunately that got canceled, and the newest one got canceled for Winter NAMM of 2021. But that's okay. It took a whole year to get this darn guitar, because Gibson was having issues with the painting of this. Now, this is an interesting touch. They did not actually put Gibson on the case anywhere. So that tells us they're kind of going after those older Lipton style cases. But anyways, if you're not familiar with who this guy is, he actually, tours with Paul McCartney. He did a bunch of guitar work and bass work. He's like a session musician. You've probably seen his really cool Les Paul pool. If you haven't, check out this video for that. But here we go. The guitar that I've been waiting a whole year for. The Brian Ray SG Jr. Wow. That is stunning. I love this case with this finish. Take a look at this beautiful thing. So the biggest thing about this thing being released is the Ebony block tremolo system. I'm not a huge fan of trems, but that's the other thing that I absolutely love about this guitar. It's a convertible. So if you don't want to have the vibrato, you can actually swap this out to a wrap tail piece. And once I heard that, it's like, yes, I need this guitar because I want to do that, because you never see what this thing looks like with a wrap tail piece. But this finish, it is not a satin finish. It still has that gloss, so it's kind of like that voodoo that we were talking about, except for this time you can't actually feel the wood grain. I mean, this thing is really cool. I mean, they're ridiculously expensive, like $4,199. Even I'll agree that that's quite the price for one of these things, but the whole convertible aspect and the fact that there's something specially hidden underneath this pickguard that I also wanted to see made this a must review and document. So let's go ahead and throw this sweet Brian Ray SG Jr. on the workbench and take an individual look at its parts and specs. Finally, we can take a look inside the custom shop Brian Ray SG Jr. Now, we just covered a Lucas Nelson signature yesterday, and basically I said there's nothing like highly special about this guitar that makes it worth the money. Now, when you step over to here, they've changed so much about this thing. It's not really a junior anymore. Only the pickup makes this a junior, because first off, this body is actually a little bit thicker than a regular SG Junior. Now, Brian says that they did that to increase the low and mid-range frequencies. So whether that's true or not, it's kind of hard to A and B unless you can shave some of the body off and do a sound comparison. But it is a solid mahogany body, and this finish right here actually has a little bit of a metallic sheen to it. The official color is actually called White Fox, playing off the whole Silver Fox that his first one was. But let's just go ahead and dive straight into the thing that everybody's most curious about, this whole system. Alright, so when you tear it all apart, this is what you've got going on here. So this is your Vibrola. It's the same ones that we've been looking at. Basically, it's just a bent piece of metal right there, and you just hope that it comes back at the same spot. They're not the best, but they look kind of cool. But what's unique about this one is it actually only secures to the body using 2 screws. And then this, the Ebony block. Now, the reason why having an Ebony block on this is so unique and fantastic is Gibson has never reissued the Ebony block. These were only briefly used on 1962 Gibson SGs. If you want to get technical, this isn't a proper reissue of it because those did not have the walrus tooth arm as this one has. They had this teaspoon arm, as they call it. But basically how this works is it just covers over those screw holes right there, and then there's 2 securing screws on either side of it, and those screws secure into the side of the unit right there. So if you think this thing looks cheesy, you could technically leave it off and just make it look like a regular junior like that. But here's what the backside of this looks like. I mean, it's just a complete ebony block that they've carved up here to fit on there. Looks a little bit sloppy on the edges, but the most important part is the outside. They've actually finished it. Then you get these jewel inlays right here. Pretty cool. But this whole conversion system is actually interesting. So stock from the factory, you actually have these big bolt studs in it. and they screw all the way down in there, and you can see that they're slotted, that way you can get them out. But once those are flush with the body, this goes on top of it, but then right underneath the thumb wheels for the ABR1 bridge, there's 2 little screws that actually secure to the top side of this. So that's how the ABR1 works. Now if you want to transform it into a regular wraparound tailpiece, Junior, you gotta take all that stuff out. And then you should, technically, in the case, have a wraparound tailpiece. Some of the early ones, the guy that was packing them at Gibson, he didn't get the memo, so they might not have them. But then you can go ahead and install these and just have a regular wraparound tailpiece if you'd wish. There's many different options how you can set this thing up. You can do it just the wrap tailpiece, leaving that off. You could do it with the wrap tailpiece and the Vibrola. You can do the Vibrola with the Ebony block. Or you can do the ABR1 setup with the Vibrola, and lastly, as it comes from the factory, with the Ebony block. So a lot of stock configurations you can technically choose from on this one. I'm going to leave it strung up as the ABR1 style because ultimately you have more control over your intonation this way. However, if it were my guitar, I would probably just string it up as the wraparound tailpiece. Leave this on here for the looks, but not actually use it because I'm not a huge fan of these Vibrolas. They don't stay in tune the best. And it's just a regular Gibson ABR1 on this. But I do want to say one thing. This little metal plate right here, it is super lightweight. It weighs almost nothing. I was expecting it to be a little bit more substantial. But so far, my only complaint about this whole system is I think the ABR1 posts should have went through this metal barrier into the wood. That way you get a little bit more vibration transfer. They actually only stop through this thin metal sheet, so they're hardly even secured in that at all. So quite the ingenious little setup here, and I think that makes it worth getting one of these just to experience that. But now the pickup itself. Unfortunately, this does not have a lot of lead length, so seeing underneath it, it's a little bit tricky, but it just says P90 dog ear. And this certainly is not the nicest looking pickup route that I've ever seen from Gibson. There's a lot of things that could have been cleaned up. I guess if you really want to be freaky, you can add the option of leaving the pickup cover on and off to all those other combinations. But here's where things get fun. Underneath the pickguard sleeps something a little bit mysterious. Now, I seriously thought it was going to be right here, but it's not. It's right there. Okay, so this is considered the P90 dummy. So it's a dummy coil. So if you know anything about Gibson in the 90s, they would do a stacked P90, and they would call it the P100, or there's also a P90H. Essentially what they're doing is they have these things wired together like a stacked P90 without it actually being a stacked P90. So this gets rid of some of the interference hum. So that 60 cycle hum that you don't want to get, or like sometimes you can hear your radio through your amp because this pickup's picking that up too. That's what this is getting rid of, so they've just hidden that underneath the pickguard. I love it when they do that. They also did that on the Blues Hawk series of guitars. But that's all that is, just the bottom side of that pickup. And here is that pickup cavity wrap. They don't take too much out of the body in order to do that, because this has that historic super long neck tenon. Looks like a big smiley face guy. And I guess if you really want to get crazy, you can technically leave the pickguard off because it is screwed into place. I don't think you want to do that though, because this thing will start looking weird. But Gibson calls this the passive induction coil circuit. And the way that you activate it is actually on a push-push pot. So not push-pull like click, click. It's the slightly inferior version, in my opinion, the push-push. And I've actually had some issues of this thing not wanting to go back down to the down position, but now that I've worked on it a little bit, it seems to be working more reliably. But as far as controls go, master volume, master tone, and you get the thumb bleeder pointers right here and the output jack on the front. Now you might ask yourself, why don't they just do the P100 instead of going through all this trouble? I mean, that's what this is for. You can choose when you want it and when you don't. Because some people don't like the tone of the P100s. They say it takes away something. But you can get both that traditional dog-eared P90 growl, and if you need to get rid of that interference, you have the option. And since he's a gigging musician, live and all that, I can see why he would want that in a guitar. Super cool stuff. As far as readings go, it's 7.78 k ohms when it is not in the circuit, and when it is in the circuit, 15.5. There we go, all put back together again. This thing is just so beautiful between that white TV finish, so you can still see through to that wood grain right there. I mean, look at that. But then you've got the whole black-white theme going on pretty much all over this guitar, including on your trem bar right there. So it's just a really neat guitar, and I measure 1.41 inches in thickness of the body. But moving on from the one-piece slab mahogany body, we get a mahogany neck that actually has a D-shaped neck profile. You don't find that in Gibson territory too often, so it's like super big, but the back of the neck is flat. And they use Jesgar 6100 jumbo frets on this, so I mean these are really big and tall. But you're going to notice, rosewood fretboard, special 12th fret inlay. This is an SG Standards neck. And that's why I love this thing, because it's not, cheapy Gibson silk screen up here and then Brian Ray on the truss rod cover like we got. This is like a full blown out mother of pearl Gibson logo. You still have the crown on the headstock. I mean, this is just like an SG Standard, but with the junior look as far as the pickups go. So that's why I think, it is expensive. Yes, I will give you guys that, but I think it's worth it as far as like all the cool limited edition specs and this whole hidden dummy coil convertible system thing. But this 12th fret inlay, it's so ingenious. It's just a regular trapezoid. It's just they kind of chopped it up a little bit to make a crown. How cool is that? But radius, it's all the same. 12-inch radius here. But let's go ahead and grab our neck specs. We have a nut width of 1.68 inches, which increases to 2.06 by the 12. First fret neck depth, 0.83. So I mean, it seems a little bit small right there, but then by the 12th, I bet it's going to stay pretty consistent. Yeah, 0.93, but it's just such a big, massive feeling neck. I enjoy this one. And as far as the headstock, you get the Brian Ray truss rod cover, and once again, what we were talking about, the Gibson SG Standard look. It looks like our truss rod's good on this one, and we'll zoom in on the binding. They did a great job on this one. Usually the custom shop guitars, they're okay with the binding. Sometimes you can see a little bit of tooling marks on the edges of the fretboard. And I'm not going to say that this one doesn't have that. You can see a small area right there. But so far, QC actually seems pretty good on this one, all things considered. Onto the back, nothing too special. Again, you can see through the wood grain on this white fox finish. I mean, it's just a very beautiful guitar. Normally it's a cherry color back here, but now we've got this kind of slightly sparkly white, but strap button up here, one on the bottom as well. And then here's what our inside control cavity looks like. So we've got a bumblebee capacitor, but then you got this funny push pot here, which throws off the whole historic look. Kind of funny, but that's how they wire that stuff up. And now that I think about it, the real reason why this SG is actually thicker than normal is a regular SG would not have been able to accommodate the push pot that Brian Ray wanted in his guitar. So that's the true reason why this guitar is thicker. It has nothing to do with tone. I think they just made that part up. And your output jack right there. So pretty basic stuff. And then we'll take a quick run up the neck here. Same thing going on. You can see that finish. Then on the back of the headstock, Kluson tuners, double-ringed, single-lined version, so they look nice and vintage-esque. And then our serial numbers on these. I believe this run starts with a 1. So that 1 tells you it's part of the 62 SG Junior run instead of his 63 Standard. Those just started, the number of production. So I believe this is the 147th one made. But BR stands for Brian Ray. All said and done, in this particular configuration, it only weighs 7 pounds, 1.9 ounces. That's gotta be easy on your back. Let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how this thing sounds. Now that we know all about Brian Ray's 62 SG Jr., what are my final thoughts on this thing? Was it a good guitar for the money? Yes, it was. However, this is not going to be a piece that's for everyone. This is for the collector that has, one of everything already, because that's exactly what this is. It's super quirky all the way down from the finish to the convertible aspect to it. Everything that we talked about today just makes this thing a one-of-a-kind SG, and I'm super happy they made this one because I think it's way cooler than his first one. So I can't wait to see what they might come up with their third one, if and when that does happen. So now some pros and cons to this. Normally SGs, they have this whole neck divey situation, but despite this thing having a really chunky neck, this was balanced. And to be honest, I was kind of surprised with that. I kind of expected it to neck dive at least a little bit. I'll be honest, now that I've been able to A and B what the dummy coil does in it, I can see why Gibson doesn't use it too much anymore. I was really impressed by this. I was expecting it to do at least some sort of a neck dive, but I think what it comes down to is the whole Ebony block apparatus tremolo system, and that thicker body just kind of helps counteract the balance of the neck, so it's perfect. Because if we would have had a neck diving SG, it wouldn't have done him any good because he's always playing live. You can't have that stuff. And the tone out of this P90 is exactly what you want when you have it in the up position. When you have that activated, it sounds so muffled and dead. Now, at the same time, in the distorted channel, you don't notice it as much, but as far as clean tones go, I definitely did not like that for my general playing. But, there's also certain situations where you might want that, so it's nice to have the option. However, I do disagree with the choice of the push-push pot. I would have preferred the push-pull, and why up means this is a regular one, and then down means that's activated, kind of bugs me. I would have rather it had been normal in the down position, and then you activate it to activate that. So it's kind of backwards to my logic, but that would be really easy to swap in the control cavity. You just gotta flip around a couple of wires. Other than that, all I really need to talk about is tuning stability. I actually thought it was pretty good. At first, when I did my usual wang right here, it just completely fell out of tune. But after that first kind of work-in session, it wasn't half bad for one of these things. But I also did some lubrication to the saddles as well as the nut. And hey, if you continue to have issues, just convert it to that wraparound tailpiece and you'll be just fine. I like having the options on this one. So was it worth the year to a year and a half wait to get this thing? Yeah, I think it was. It's so unique. I will never find another SG quite like this one, so it was certainly worth documenting. So let's go ahead and check this thing out under Blacklight before we say goodbye. We don't have much going on under the Blacklight Test. It glows a little bit, but not a lot. The tip of the Vibrola is glowing. The back, this is a brand new guitar. We're not going to find anything too crazy on this one. Let's check out that case, though. There's a little bit of specialness that comes along with that. Alright, the outside of the case, as we saw earlier, no Gibson custom logo on the outside. You don't even get the Gibson badge out here, but you get all these latches. That one does have a key on the inside. And the yellow interior, it's kind of like the Slash double neck and all those other signature, high-end signature guitars that we've seen recently. That seems to be what gets these cases. It's specially form-fit up here to fit your Vibrola system. But what we really need to take a look at is the case candy here. We get a Gibson custom tag, the wraparound bridge should you choose to install it, your pre-pack checklist, and then the coolest piece of case candy has to be the Certificate of Authenticity booklet here. They've given it the same treatment as the guitar has, so you can see like a faux wood grain. You get his signature printed there. You see him smiling at you saying, "Hey, you bought my guitar." And your normal Certificate of Authenticity right there. Now apparently the first 50 of these made actually got a secret signature inside of this booklet. I heard that from a custom shop employee. Unfortunately, this was not one of those. Troglodytes, thank you for tuning in to the Brian Ray SG Jr. I hope you enjoyed getting to learn more about this one. I know I had a great time tearing this one apart. If you're interested in being the next owner of this particular one, you can check out that link in the description, which will take you to the Reverb for sale page. Or if you want to buy one of these brand new, you can also follow my Sweetwater link in the description to support the channel while making your purchase. Thank you, Troglodytes, for tuning in today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.